Breaking, the Houston Rockets just made a massive move, declining Fred VanVleet's team option for the upcoming season and instead signing him to a 2-year contract. I'm telling you, this is insane, and we have all the details for you right here on Rockets Digest. Welcome in, guys. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you joining us. Before we get going, we are inching closer to 2,500 subscribers. In fact, right at 160 away. If you're new here, we got all the latest on your H-Town team, so go down there and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss anything that happens with the Houston Rockets. Okay, Shams Charania has the report, something we've all been expecting, but now it is official. He comes out and says, Houston Rockets guard Fred VanVleet intends to sign here's the details, 2-year, $50 million contract to stay with the franchise with a player option after this upcoming season in 2026-2027. Sources obviously tell this to ESPN. Rockets are now declining officially Fred VanVleet's $44.9 million team option and land a new deal with Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul. And this is something we expected to happen. Obviously, Fred VanVleet and the Rockets had mutual interest in signing a different contract that would keep him in Houston, but on a little bit more of a team-friendly deal. This does exactly that. Shams Charania continues to kind of praise Fred VanVleet in his latest tweet, saying VanVleet played a key role on the number 2 seeded Rockets last season. He ranked 7th in assist-to-turnover ratio per ESPN research and has averaged 35 minutes in each of his last 6 seasons. So Fred VanVleet, a veteran leader, a guy who really started this Rockets rebuild along with Dillon Brooks, he will stay in a red Rockets jersey, and I'm excited to see him here. Let me know your thoughts on this contract. We've got a bunch of details and kind of breaking this all down throughout the video, but initial reaction, what's the word you're thinking? Are you happy? Do you not like this? Do you think this is a little bit still too much for Fred VanVleet? Do you think they should have just let him go completely? I want you to get down in the comment section. Let me know kind of all that you're thinking on this contract and what exactly you feel about it. Now, let's go into the Fred VanVleet stats here because he is going into a 31 to 32-year-old season. This last year, he averaged 14 points per game, 3.7 rebounds. His assists were definitely a big part of his game, and he averaged 5.6 a game. Field goal and three-point percentage, just about league average, but I think the big thing that Fred VanVleet, at least last year, put to this team that was really hard to see on a stat sheet was his veteran leadership. And you could see it on the benches, you could see it on the court, but these younger players, obviously last year Jalen Green, but Amen Thompson, Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., you could see him constantly not only just talking to these guys, but just kind of going in and saying, hey, let's keep this together, keeping their confidence up, which was a huge part of last year's season. Even when VanVleet was injured, he was around the team, he was on the benches, he was helping the guys out, and obviously he should be rewarded for that and stay with the Houston Rockets. Now, Kevin Durant, obviously being a veteran, comes in here and kind of helps this out, and now the money is in an interesting spot. So we have a couple of details to kind of look at here. So first of all, the money saved on this contract rather than having that initial contract that he was on that they just declined. They are saving nearly $20 million on this contract, as his original one, as mentioned in the Shams Charania tweet, was worth about $44.9 million this upcoming season. Now, obviously, with the $50 million deal for 2 years, it's $25 million a year. So saving right around $20 million. So what exactly can the Rockets do with that money? Well, that's where the couple of house cleaning options kind of come in here. And we look at the contract or the cap table for the Houston Rockets. Now, I'm going to have a long explanation for this, and I apologize because the cap table is not fully updated just yet, and they state this in the table saying that the trade for Kevin Durant has not been processed, so it's not in the cap, and the Fred VanVleet signing has not officially yet been signed, so that is not in the cap. However, in terms of the Kevin Durant trade, it is an equal money split here with Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green going to Phoenix and Kevin Durant coming here. So pretty much can just kind of chalk that contract away. However, the Fred VanVleet contract is just non-existent in this, which makes sense because last time I showed you this table, the Rockets were at about a negative $8 million over that first apron cap. Now they're at $35 million on this table, but that does not include the $25 million this year. So if we're doing the math here, the Rockets are going to have about $10 million or so to go out and spend under that first apron. Obviously, the Rockets have been very prevalent. They want to stay under that first apron. And $10 million is, you can do a lot with that, especially with what the Rockets need, and that is a guard. They need an extra guard. Before we move on to like what they could do with that money, what are the options, kind of breaking all that down, I do want to go to Shams Charania again, who had a full article listing out on VanVleet, and he said this in the article. VanVleet, a one-time All-Star and former NBA champion with the Raptors, has helped spearhead the Rockets' turnaround from lottery team to playoff contender in his 2 seasons with Houston, end quote. Now, Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet bought into this team 2 years ago, and was a 41-41 season their first year, which was a big jump from the prior year. Then, of course, this year, the 52 wins, the number 2 seed. Yes, you fall in the first round of the playoffs, but it is a new era of Rockets basketball. Unfortunately, Dillon Brooks was moved in the trade, which, I mean, if you're getting Kevin Durant, I think that's worth it. I'm a little sad that he had to go, but it makes sense getting Kevin Durant. I'm more excited about Kevin Durant coming here. But keeping VanVleet is a nice thing for the Rockets to do for multiple different reasons. He can be a very good, very reliable point guard. / if you do want to move Amen Thompson to the 1, you could play VanVleet at the 2 for a little bit. I think that might be a little split this year, depending on what happens with the rest of that $10 million. But overall, VanVleet not only deserves to stay here, but I think is a definite piece of this Rockets team that, if he weren't here, would feel a little off. I think if you look at Jalen Green and you look at Dillon Brooks, yes, is it going to feel weird without having them here? Yes. But if VanVleet left along with those 2, I think that would kind of change the dynamics of this team. And so then, what exactly is left for the Houston Rockets in terms of money, contract, all that? Well, there is a caveat to this contract. He has a player option again after this upcoming season. Now, I say this to then follow up and say that I don't think it is likely at all that he uses this team, or rather player option, and it's probably more likely that he will stay with the Rockets through the 2026-2027 season. Because unless he comes out and has a career year and leads us to the NBA Finals / championship, whatever, he's not going to make more than $25 million out on the open market. He's also mentioned so many times, I like what we built here. I like Ime Udoka. I like being in Houston. So I think it would be hard for him to decline $25 million when he'd probably get, even if he had a career year, maybe a little bit above that in the open market, especially at 32 years old at that point. And, you know, what the Rockets are building, I believe he wants to be a part of that and wants to stay a part of that. So I think he'll probably stay through that contract year. So in that case, you look at the contract, $25 million over the next, or for this season and next season. And so $10 million is left in the cap table this year. And that's where I look at some of the top guards available here on the open market for free agents. VanVleet is included in this, so obviously don't take him, but a couple of guys that could be free agents / already are free agents that the Rockets could look at signing at the guard position, because it's been very present and very clear for Houston. They would like to add another guard to their team just to kind of keep a little bit of, I'm going to say depth, because you don't want to have to be playing Amen Thompson and Fred VanVleet, all the time. Reed Shepherd will be in there as well. Cam Whitmore. There's a couple of guys that I trust. I'm not saying we don't have anybody, but just kind of looking to see how they can make this team better with $10 million. And you look at Malik Beasley, Kelly Oubre Jr., Josh Giddey is believed to stay with the Bulls. He is a restricted free agent, so I doubt he will go anywhere. Same thing with Cam Thomas there at the top. James Harden would be an interesting one, but I just don't think he's going to sign for a $10 million a year contract, especially considering what other people are signing for. So I think you're probably looking towards more of the bottom of this, of a Malcolm Brogdon, a Dennis Schroeder, a D'Angelo Russell, a Russell Westbrook. I think those bottom 4, even Ty Jerome, he had a really good year this year, but I still think you could get him for a $10 million deal. Those are the guys that I'm looking at for the Houston Rockets when it comes to free agency and who they might try and sign. Now, the options for the Rockets are in an interesting position, because they could sign a shooting guard or point guard, whatever you want to call him, just a guard in general, and just sign a good one for $10 million a season, and boom, you're right there at the first apron. There also is the option that if they feel that the depth is lacking, which I don't think it is, I think it's at a good spot with Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore. I would love to see them get more time. Aaron Holiday, I do think also is a little undervalued. I would like to kind of see him. He's probably going to stay with the team this year. His contract is also in an interesting spot, but there are people that I trust. So if I'm the Rockets, I'm using that $10 million on one player. That's what I'm doing. Because as reported, the Rockets won't have any draft picks this year because they had number 10 and number 59. They gave number 10 to Phoenix. They gave number 59 to Phoenix in the trade for Kevin Durant. So you're not sending anybody from the draft. And you have those $10 million. I think you go out and you sign a good guard, or at least a decent guard. And, you could sign Russell Westbrook to the vet minimum, which would then probably give you a little extra money to go out and get something else, or just have a little bit of leeway when it comes to the trade deadline if you want to go make a move for somebody else. So there's a lot of stuff that the Rockets could do with that $10 million, but obviously Fred VanVleet deserves to stay with Houston. I'm glad they got it in a more team-friendly deal. Personally, I would have liked to have seen it more in the $20 million range. I think he is a little bit overpaid for $25 million. That's just me personally. But I do believe that the Rockets wanted him back, and they were willing to reward him for coming here and taking a chance on the Rockets in some way. And so I'm not going to complain too much about $25 million. It's a $5 million difference from what I would have paid to what they actually paid. It just gives you a little more leeway when going out and trying to get an extra guard here in free agency. We'll see what happens, but again, let me know down in the comment section, what should the Rockets do with the $10 million in cap space they have left? Should they go out and sign a guard? Should they go out and sign a couple of guys? Should they just leave that there and wait for the trade deadline? Maybe there's somebody that they want to go trade that's going to have a little bit more of a higher contract value. Let me know what you're thinking down in the comment section below. And of course, always a penny for your thought. Would love to hear what Rockets Nation and H-Town is thinking about this. But overall, I'm excited. I like Fred VanVleet. I'm happy he's back. He is a definite veteran leader. And not to say Kevin Durant isn't, but VanVleet has been around these guys. They've been around Amon. He's been around Alperen and Jabari. So it's just going to be a little bit easier having VanVleet and KD there rather than, KD coming in and not having VanVleet. So that's just the way I see it. But let me know again your thoughts in the comment section, and we will see you next time right here on Rockets Digest. Peace out, guys, from H-Town.